Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Well, guys, do you think we have it sorted yet? Have we found out what's on the other side of the gate? We have a good idea. I think we have a good idea. We all have our theories and our things that we're comfortable with and our thoughts. And I'll tell you what, we were talking about, I think it was last week, we were talking about the Y-Files and AJ and Hecklefish. And if you watch it, if you're not watching it, you're missing something, because I love the format. I love that he goes through and at the end he debunks what he can and says, is it true? And then he tells you why certain facts he doesn't think can be backed up, or he found out where they just came out of, thin air and then just regurgitated through, like I'm always talking about here, so many true crime and conspiracy things and events of all kind, paranormal, supernatural, and otherwise. And watching him, and looking at some of the stuff and the in-depth stuff that he does, it almost inspires you to dig deeper too, and in some ways it was funny because I watched an episode, don't know which one, the other day. I highly recommend the Georgia Guidestone one. That one blew me off my chair. I was like, finally, that's one that I wanted to know who did what and why and all that. And I was one, I have to admit, I had Ted Turner on my bingo card. I was wrong. So there you go. I highly recommend, if you're wrong, don't hesitate to say it, but I'm just glad to know the truth. That's what we strive for here. So again, I mentioned AJ because I was just watching an episode. Again, it inspires you to dig deeper. Some of his episodes on Mel's Hole and a couple of other ones that Art Mel kind of touched on, a lot of the time travel stuff. Just fascinating. It's just fascinating. So I was digging around last weekend in the 90s, and Steve and I had a blast, and I had a blast with you last Sunday. And there's so much of sightings that, if you want to, you can learn from it, because if you're a paranormal investigator, if you're just learning about that, or you're interested in it, or you're in a group, if you have abilities and you're wondering, hey, how's other people getting through it, whatever aspect and level that your interest is on in this realm, you can get a lot from that, right? And that's something else, kind of binge watching the Y-Files has taught me, just digging in. And now I get to these comments and saying, hi to you lovely people. But I wanted to say this first, because again, the Y-Files needs no help from Cisco. Trust me. That's not the point here. If you give a nod to somebody else, like Nuke's Top 5 or something, and it's almost silly, doing that. But that's not the point. The point is getting the information out there, right? And saying, look, these people have a lot of good information, and you might be interested in it. It might help you in your research or something that you're really, trying to dig on, And I think they have integrity, and that's so, I don't want to say it's rare. I think it's harder to find, because there's so much BS out there. Do you know what I mean? And clickbait, and people just regurgitate and stuff. And that's not what we're about here. I mean, we'll tell a story, but try very hard to get the facts or find something new, or that's why it's interesting looking back at something like the 90s. Think about it, guys. That's over 30 years ago. I hope you have your cuppa. I have the rose and mint de-stressor, right? A 55-gallon drum of that we'll be needing. So anyway, talking about de-stressors, I just wanted to get that out about the Wi files. Now you guys are saying something about Ted was saying what happened to AJ and your tube swine. I don't know. Oh, AJK, I don't know. I have no idea. Last I heard, he was firefighting, and I hadn't heard again, and I had not received answers back on, I think, 2 or 3 emails. But that happens. Sometimes people get redirected in life. They get their interest goes this way, or they get, sidetracked over here. So I don't know. But if anybody hears from AJ, all our friends, from how many, it doesn't matter how many years back, please come in, pop in, tell us you're okay. Let us know you're still out there and keeping the lights on, please do. So, oh, they kept deleting his channel. Yeah, they sure did. It's not easy, guys. Listen, especially when you do what I do. I was talking to Steve about it the other day. It's just like, it's so good that I just come here and I do what I want to do. We say what we want to say. Hey, Lulu Bell. I was petting cats, so I'm still pulling cat hair. Just when you think you got it all, and there's this one, feel like Lucy. Lucille Ball. Guess there's worse things you could be. So anyway, just see, we talked about the AJ thing. Okay, please hit the like because it helps so much. And thank you so much for those of you that are sharing and, trying to get it out again. It's hard when you're a channel and you're just, so here's the thing. I just do what I want to do for that week or that day, or conversations with people I have coming up, or books I'm reading or researching, cases or whatever. And that's why I try to keep it just how we want to do it and what we want to talk about, right? And chill and have this great chat and this great vibe. Because if it was so big, then what happens is you have to, you're hiring people, you're dedicating more time. Listen, I dedicate everything I got, several times, several different ways, I mean. But when you do that, then you have people you have to pay, and then you have to keep up, and you have to keep up, and you have to keep up, you have to keep up. And it's rough. It's a rough ride to be on. Sometimes you can ride it like crazy and everything is fine, and then something shifts. An employee you miss, or somebody, a partner, or information, or something else comes out. The outside comes in, reaches in, says you can't talk about that, and before you know it, they're trying to sue you for whatever. Or it's just, you have to do what the advertisers want. You have to do with it. Oh my God. We're talking about ghosts and having a good time and chilling out, right? So that's the beauty of this. I can sit back and go, you know what? I don't think I'm done with the 90s yet, because I feel like we just barely touched on a couple things, and all week long. Did you guys do that? A couple, at least after the show, think about it. You're driving your car and all of a sudden something pops in your mind and go, man, that movie, I should have mentioned that in the chat. I can't believe I forgot that. Because it's the whole decade, right? Hey, Vixen Doe. Hi, honey. And it's a whole decade and so many different things. And I took different routes with it too, because I thought about all the movies. Man, they're just not the same anymore. I mean, come on, the 90s, all the different ones that we were naming, Total Recall and Titanic and Twister and, just Jurassic Park and on and on and on and on and on. Those caliber of movies just are not being released and haven't been for a while. Whatever your, likes and dislikes and things like that are, I'm sure that you would agree with me that you can find more things that you like on the inner tubes or the Rumble channel or a nostalgic channel or something on even Tubi and things like that, where the people are going back and they're binge watching older shows, old movies. I see it all the time because there's nothing like them, So I thought about in the movie category, and then I thought books. I didn't even stumble on. I mentioned Harry Potter and I mentioned a couple of other ones because those are big. Thank you, Ted, for dropping that. Yes, please. And listen, toss me $1, buy a T-shirt, buy a sticker. I'll throw my T Public up here in a little bit. But listen, T Public, you wait. If you can sign up for the thing where you get like 20%, or I can't remember what they offer, but it's all T Public. We get a little bit here and it goes toward the show, and we appreciate it. But if you're looking to throw $1 on us to get most of it, the best way to do that is the PayPal that Ted just dropped. And, we appreciate every super chat and everything else. But if you do it through YouTube takes theirs because, of course, it's their platform. I think they're up to 40% now. But again, it's their platform. They're the one paying for the bandwidth. So, and then, but if you get a sticker, you got the sticker. You get something. So, hey, Henry, welcome in. Uncommon, it's wonderful to see you. Scott, I missed you the past couple of weeks. I hope you've been okay, love. I figured you were out there just hammering nails or trying to make more to buy more, We're all doing it, man. We're all doing it. So I hope things are going well for you. Jennifer, it's lovely to see you here. Sarah, it's lovely to see you. It's always good to see you, my friend. Ted, I love you. How's Lord Connor doing? Each had a house and cocktail weenies yet? Connor loves, he's getting big. That's a lot of cocktail weenies. No joke. But if I missed you, I apologize. I know Caillou was in here. Did I see Slow? I think I did. But if I missed you, I apologize. We'll try to catch you through the show. Oh, Ted, thank you, sweetie. Thank you, my love. Thank you. That goes, where that goes, right into the funny honey in the show. I'm not doing funny honey tonight, but maybe a gummy or two. But it's been Sunday. I've been all day at the computer. Thank you, sweetheart. We appreciate every single bit and your wonderful modfulness. Now, I'm going to tell you now, 2 weeks ahead, I believe it's 2 weeks, we are going to have Mr. Ron Murphy back on. I love him dearly. He's been moving and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but he's going to take off time. Thank you so much, sweetheart. He's going to take off a little time to come here and talk about witches. So we are going to delve back. We're going to talk about some pretty nasty, dark stuff because we tell the truth here. And if you don't know your enemy, how are you going to battle it? At least understand what they believe. You don't have to necessarily believe it. That doesn't matter. It's what they believe. You see what I mean? And why they're doing things. And there you go. And that goes off in many different branches. Just because somebody's doing this doesn't mean this. All this is not this. There's very few things I think you can paint with a broad brush like that. Ghost isn't one of them. It just isn't. I've got good friends who I love dearly that say all ghosts are this. And I'm sorry. It's just not statistically probable, And until I learn different, that's where I'm sitting. Because nobody's going to tell me that some of the ones that I've talked to have been something completely different because I have better filters than that. And I have better discernment than that. And I'm not saying it can't be fooled. I'm saying in that case, I think something so evil could not pretend and be able to put out the same vibrations. They cannot survive in that vibration. Which is why when your vibration is high and in a love vibration, it repels them. How are you going to walk in on it? And until somebody can prove me that, nobody can tell me that they're all demons or all this or all aliens or whatever. It's just not probable in my understanding of my filters in that amount of time. It's not arrogant. It's not this or it's not. It just is. Just like certain facts that until something comes along that completely, which is highly possible. It's happened before. And you do a 180. Doesn't it bug you when somebody says when you do a 360? That's got to be one of my, I wouldn't say it's a pet peeve, but I always go, what? It's like a cat chasing her tail. Well, he did a complete turnaround. He did a 360. Well, that is a complete turnaround because what you did was you started and it started right back where you were. Is that what you mean? He was chasing his tail. Or do you mean he did a about face, did a 180? It's totally different thing. It turned around completely the other direction. It kept on going. That's usually what you mean by 180. But have you ever noticed that people? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But when somebody says he did a complete turnaround, you would assume, maybe you shouldn't do that, that they mean an about face, that they flipped, that they started in one direction and flipped and went completely in the other direction. 360 is fun for basketball dunk or what? Yeah, exactly. But do you understand? Am I saying it right? Maybe it's me. Maybe it's the T. Does that make sense to you though? I mean, I must have heard it. I don't. Maybe it's just standing out to me too. But again, not the dumbest things I've heard in the past week since we were last together. How about you guys? Been a heck of a week, ain't it? But that's one of the reasons anyway. We didn't circle back around. I did a 180 on that one. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate that. It always makes me feel good when people tell me that. Because again, a lot of times I'm not sure. It's like I'm just throwing darts in a bar, It's like, hey, bullseye, excellent. At least I didn't miss completely. But I've done that too, and I'm fine with it. That's how we learn. That's how warriors are built. So anyway, back to the 90s. So why am I still in the 90s? Because again, like Steve and I talk about when we get together on the Mondays, 1970s. Why, same evidence in a lot of ways. And yet still people are saying they don't believe in this, or, I can believe in ghosts, but I can't believe in a Bigfoot. And I can believe in a Bigfoot, but I can't believe in aliens. And I can believe in aliens as a whole nother. Because now you got so many different kinds. And are they extra dimensional? Are they interdimensional? Which is that the same thing, or isn't it? And then you've got what dimension? Or are they from space? Or are they from inner Earth? Or underwater? Or all the above? Right? In and out of portals and in and out of the ocean and Atlantis and triangles and pyramids under the water and abductions and lights and rods and triangles and TikToks and all kinds of mess. And then you had different kinds of aliens. And what do they want? What are they here? Good, bad, both, mixed. Nephilim. Like that fish yells all the time. The lizard people. And what's this other? The Anunnaki. But again, you hear these stories. And again, a nod to AJ and the Wild Files. Like I said, not that he needs it, but there, right is right. The way he speaks about, he'll tell you a story, and you're in it because whoa, there's pictures and there's visuals and all these things, and everything fits, and it's like yeah, that's possible. I'm right there with you. And then at the end he goes, but is it true? Where did that come from? Where did that information come from? That information stemmed from such and such. Okay. All of that information pretty much came out of this book. Okay. So like if you're talking about Admiral what's his face out there in what was it? Project Blue Duck or something. Wasn't Blue Beam. Oh gosh, I know as well as my own. Admiral Byrd, Antarctica, Project. Lost it. Somebody throw it up in the chat if you remember it. But anyway, you listen to that and you have people and somebody was on Art Bell talking about it, and somebody wrote a book and was a guest on Coast to Coast, and this person did something else and wrote this and said this, and disagree about what mermaids existing. Yes, I totally believe it. I mean, who am I? To say something can't exist. It's easier to prove to me that they can't, something can or doesn't. Again, I'm at that point. I'm not saying, I'm going to prove to you ghosts exist with all this evidence. I'm going to go prove to me they don't. against all this evidence. And if you're just going to paint broad brush and go, everybody's hallucinating, or this guy's making it up, or this guy hit his head and he said something and it suggested it to the woman in the kitchen, and that's why she saw the guy come out of the closet. Bullshit. I have a power of suggestion, and mine's pretty good, and it's not that vivid where I'm just going to conjure up a beast coming out of my pantry because somebody suggested it. Are we really that pliable? Now, if I've been MK Ultra'd all my life, or some other kind of mess, or some kind of hypnosis, or subliminal thing, or frequency direction, or 10,000 other things I could mention to probably get me kicked off of YouTube. But, if you bring in another factor, another variable, okay, we could talk about it. But just because somebody mentioned, I actually heard more than one person on a paranormal show use that as an explanation for something that happened. Well, the power of suggestion, which again, not saying power of suggestion isn't powerful. Sure, it can be. I mean, ask Mesmer what he thinks about it. Ask so many people that went through all those little experiments and voluntary clinical studies and all that kind of stuff over there in places like, Harvard and places. Ask Kaczynski what he thinks about it. Would they start on him when he was like 16? Because the kid was so smart, they didn't know what to do with him, so they thought that they would break him. Not excusing what he did, just saying how he got started. And wasn't on his own. It's not the only one this happened to. So what does this have to do with the 90s and AJ and all that? Well, like I said, it inspired me to dig even deeper and looking into some of these paranormal investigations, because it seems to me, like Steve and I were talking about, and I've really been diving deep into it because I was on Steve's radio show. I think it's airing right now this weekend, in the midweek. I was on his show. Hey, Jack, welcome in. I was on his show and we were talking about, he said, hey, let's talk about paranormal stuff, television, and how it changed through the decades. I'm like, I'm right there. We made it to the 90s and got stuck. We couldn't get back because it was so much in the amount of times. We went back to radio, and I started talking about how cool some of these old radio shows are, like CBS Mystery and Suspense, and some of the other earlier ones. And some of them started late 50s. I mean, some of these were early 40s. I mean, half of this chat has listened to some of them with me from 1938. We're listening to a live audience, their laughter, not canned laughter and canned applause and signs and things. They might have had somebody going like this, but it was an early day and it was more spontaneous and real and organic. And these actors are getting up there and they're acting out entire things like The Wizard of Oz. And I think the other day we listened to, what was it? The Thin Man with William Powell and Myrna Loy, for Pete's sakes. And, we had Barbara Stanwyck and so many other ones. But the point is a lot of these radio shows were very heavily based in mystery, detective, of course, but a lot of them had paranormal, supernatural stuff, unexplained. And CBS Mystery, I can tell you for a fact that I know at least 4 of those that are based on real cases from Bryce Boyd. And he was a parapsychologist out of Project Bluebeam. Thank you so much. I had the color. So many blues. Why do they like blue so much, the government? I have to ask them. Why do they like blue so much? What's going on with that? I could start a whole new conversation. Derek's here. Derek's popping in. So anyway, why I'm digging back to that? Because in the 70s, like I was saying earlier, we watched experts from the time, air quotes, that were sitting around a picnic table. And I've talked about this before, I know, but there's a point, I promise. And each one of them had between 20 and 25 years experience looking for Bigfoot and hunting and fishing game, all of those things that, survivalists and campers. And this is back in the time, 72, 73, we were watching it. So these guys are going back to the 40s. And they were having the same you finding the same information, hearing the same type of stories, the same type of, encounters from different people, and of a totally different um, group of people that were living back then. How they held different values and their reputation at the job, and uh, how somebody would, well, he's a police officer. That meant something. It meant, that they had some integrity back then, supposedly. There's good and bad in all errors, trust me. In every aspect you could look. If we haven't learned that on this show, we ain't learned nothing. There bad's everywhere. So it was good. So in the 70s, if they're still arguing about whether, to trap him and kill him just to prove he exists, or, whether footprints and these impressions in these plaster molds are proving anything. And if we get hair, can we analyze it and tell what kind of a species it is? And of course, then they didn't have DNA, they didn't have the technology we have now, but here we are, we have those things, and where are we? And then somebody comes up with supposed evidence of that. And what do? We throw rocks at her, and we say, no, you don't have anything. That's not true. This isn't, there can't be a DNA with this, and this. And again, I don't know all the aspects of all this information, but I know that it's come up in the past couple of decades. And when people do get something, it's thrown out, just like ghost pictures and ghost this and ghost whatever. Those poor guys taking Polaroids where the names and the words are coming up. They even went to the Polaroid people and they said, we can't figure out, anything but supernatural could be doing this. We sealed the package. You heard them speak it yourself. Still have cat hair. So it doesn't matter, it seems, how much evidence. It doesn't seem how tight the evidence is, the provenance of the evidence, and how it was handled, and the integrity of the people doing it. It doesn't matter how good the person, the witness, retells the story, or how clear the picture is or not clear it is. The Patterson Gimlin, Patterson, you know what I'm talking about. You can look at it and, this and the muscles and the way the foot goes and this and that and the way it, guy in we've talked that inside out and upside down. And what it comes down to is you look at the people that were doing it, and he wasn't such a great guy. He never paid back anybody. And again, nod to AJ. He did a great episode on this. And I agree with him. Patterson Gimlin, I think, right? I'm covered in cat hair. So it doesn't matter how much evidence. So what do we watch it for? What are we looking for? What are we go to the seminars for, and the paracons for, and watch the shows for, and look at the pictures and look at the, my gosh, and look at all of the CCT footage and all of these things, right? I think we're still interested. We're still trying to learn, right? We want to learn a new thing. We want to be validated in maybe something that we saw. And again, we've talked about this before, but I think it's more. I think it's something in us that says the absolute sheer tonnage of information and data that we've gathered. Admiral Byrd, I think, but it was Project Bluebeam, I believe. So anyway, yeah, did I finish that? AJ did one. Go watch that episode. I can't do it as good as he did, but here's the thing. You hear all this evidence again from the book from Admiral Byrd, and then you go back and then you're like, you pick apart, well, this isn't possible because, was the wrong time of year, or this is absolutely not possible. Thank you, the South Pole. And, all these different things can't be right. So that throws off the story, just like the Patterson Gimlin. It really comes down to, like Nuke's Top 5 says, it's really up to you. Is it a hoax or is it real? But is it all a hoax? All of it. Decades and decades and decades, going way back in every culture. Is it all a lie? And it blows my mind that we can have the kind of information that we have available to us now. Not a lot of the stuff that's on TV available now. I mean, it's available, but it's not prime time. Let's put it that way. It's available in there, but you got to dig. It's older shows or there's a couple of good ones out there and good movies that teach a little bit about this, or at least try to give a realistic view on it without everything being just imaginary. If you're going to, again, I was talking to Steve on the radio show, we were talking about, if you're going to, I can handle a movie if I know it's based on a book. I've already predestined myself to be ready to be disappointed if I really like the book, because it's rare they make a movie and a book where you wouldn't be disappointed or mad. They left something out, changed this, added this. Why'd they do that? It's annoying. And if I see a movie first and then read a book, that's different, because I'm going to just assume the book's better. And sometimes that's not true. In that case, I would have to say Jaws. The book was very good, but there was a lot of unnecessary stuff in it, in my opinion. Whereas the movie kind of just stayed focused on that, but it changed a few things, and it was okay. That was one of those rare things. Stand By Me was a short story King did, and then a movie. Both were excellent, but the movie actually had more in it because it was a short story and they expanded on it, but pretty much almost word for word, chapter by chapter anyway. I mean, paragraph to paragraph. So it's rare. But if I know a movie is based on a true story, such as, say, Amityville or anything like that, Conjuring, how much of this is based on, and what's the base built on? Because if it's built on hearsay and whatnot, and somebody used to live back in the day that might have lived in the neighborhood whose name might have been this, could have gotten a bar fight with somebody and they got stabbed, and, that could be him. And then it builds from there over the decades, just some made up hoodinky. And before you know it, you're studying something that didn't even happen. How many of those stories do we know? But we have all this stuff available to us, looking back, 70s, go all the way back to the 30s, and then, of course, so many written materials. But now everything that's on video, and we overlook it. And I'm wondering why they're taking us further and further away from these type of base shows where they really go in there and they really try to have a conversation and try to sort it out. It's funny to watch now because of the times. I mean, again, 30 years ago. But now it's just the hype and the jump and the blood and the story. So many people I know that have just gotten out of it that used to do shows that just say, because we're telling them the amazing things that happen and they just want to know about this. Can you tell about this? Can you emphasize on this a little bit more? Can you, bring out that more? And they all have different ways of doing it, whether it's cinematography or over dramatization or just blatant out lying, and this is where we are. Or it's these creepypastas type American Horror Story, bigger, better, faster, more, 1,000 corpses kind of zombie shit, rough. And slasher stuff will always go over, and the gore and that stuff will always, sometimes I'm looking through stuff to try to grab stuff for the show, and I'm like, whoa, we've certainly changed here. There's not much you can't find. So what are we doing with all that back evidence? And if we're looking at paranormal shows now and we're not getting fed in our inquisitive paranormal supernatural brain, why aren't we looking back or look on, in other countries and looking at stuff that they did, like we were talking about last week, like Creepy Canada, and it's changed its name several times, but man, that show's good. And some that, Steve had mentioned, and, that I can't, I didn't even remember. And again, One Step Beyond, starting early. I think it was just separated by months um, between Twilight Zone and One Step Beyond. There was a little controversy stuff going on there too between the players in both those shows, but I digress. So there it is. We've got this evidence and we've got a chance to look back and go, wow, what's changed? That's interesting. The nostalgia, that's great. The escape from today's BS, that's a pleasure, right? And we also kind of harken back and see some of these things, like looking at the commercials and looking at, remember we went to the theater to see that movie. I remember being with the kids or whatever it may be. That's always a nice thing. And I think getting this information like that is extra cool. It's an added bonus because, like I said, there's so much information there. So we've done the 70s. We even went back 100 years, what was scaring us in 1923. And we were amazed to see how close we were to the people then, and pretty much getting scared at the same time. I mean, gosh, they could look back on H.H. Holmes and the Chicago Fair and all that kind of murder castle and so many things going on. There was no shortage of trauma and drama in 1923. That's for dang sure. But there wasn't much shortage of it in the 90s either. But I noticed there was something that was kind of cool. And Steve and I were talking about this too on the radio show. It was starting to have these shows that did have a lot of this interaction with the public. Sightings was one of the first ones. America's Most Wanted was also. And I forget exactly when that started, but I believe it was in the 90s. It might have been late 80s. Not sure. But they were all starting to get this format, like That's Incredible. Like Steve said, that's the first time he ever heard about Yanni at the Toys R Us, the haunted Toys R Us. And Sylvia Brown was often on that show because of where they shot it, and that was her kind of stomping ground. And so many of these different psychics are familiar on different shows like this, because that's when around the time you started seeing Daniel Brinkley coming through. He's a wonderful individual. He's the one that's had like 3 NDEs, but he got electrocuted with lightning, came back, and now he's a light worker all the way. But he also got abilities. And so he did a lot of the shows. And there was a couple of other ones. We're trying this different format. Like I think it was Fact or Faked, Beyond Belief, Fact or Faked, where they'd tell you, and it's made up shows. And like I said, I can take it if you're telling me you're making it up. I can enjoy a story. But if you're telling me it's fake, it's based on a real story, and then you just make up 90% of it, I'm not a fan. That goes with shows too. But Fact or Faked was pretty cool. But the format of Sightings, and then again kind of taken off by Unsolved Mysteries, which added so many different things to it in a different aspect, and America's Most Wanted after. Because of that, they could reach out and say, hey, if something's happened to you, call in. And then they could reach out to universities and the locals, and maybe locals of where the haunting was or the issue was, whether it was UFOs, like we said earlier, mostly UFOs, sightings, abductions like that, unexplained things, miracles, angel visits and things like that as well. Anything supernatural as well as paranormal. And they had the unique way of, we watched one last weekend, last Sunday, I think, or maybe it was with Steve, of where Tim White, the host of Sightings, went to Alcatraz with one of my favorite psychics and mediums, Peter James. And Peter was a very gentle soul. He was pretty much, he was very adamant. He was no nonsense. He was accurate as all get out. And he would take his time. You see him a lot sitting at a table talking to the family, trying to see how they're doing. If there was a family involved, because again, another famous one he did was the Queen Mary, and he would take his time with the Earthbound as well. And he was, again, very adamant about things he said and very accurate, as you saw last week in Alcatraz. And I was putting up boom, 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 because he said, I've got to see, and I'm this. And then they went and looked it up. He had no idea. Yep, this was, Cecil. He was killed there, yada, yada. This happened, boom, time after time after time, one thing after another. Peter James didn't play. But every single medium has their own style. You noticed a couple other mediums that came in. You might not recognize their name, but they were ones that came in several different situations that, sightings might have been involved in. But they weren't, let's just say, very famous. They might have been ones that were working with the police, because they do that all the time. You just don't hear about it. Of course you don't, because it doesn't make sense for cops to say, we got all this evidence through a psychic. You know how many cases would be thrown out of court? Even though some should be, think about it. So, they're not going to come out and say, we did this. I know several that have worked for years. And that's a lot of things I see in comments on people's shows and stuff like that too, where they'll come in and go, well, there's so many missing people. How come psychics aren't helping find these people? Well, they do. And I've known multiple that'll get to a certain edge and they hit this wall, and the wall is, they know who's involved and they're too big. And you know who I'm talking about. You got it. Because they don't want to get, see? So anyhow, and believe me, the locals that are working with the psychics know this too. All right, so obviously, like I said, I wasn't completely done with the 90s. I think it's still fun, and I went and pulled 3 cases, because 2 of them are with the wonderful Peter James. One we did, I've got it kind of toward the ends. If you want to talk about it, we will. If we've got time and all that, we can bring it in. But one of them was the Sally House. And the whole reason it was ever called the Sally House was because of Peter James. He walked in there. He spent some time there. He looked up the stairs, and there's a little girl standing at the top of the stairs. Now, you've heard a lot of things about the Sally House. Was it just a little girl? Was it something pretending to be a little girl? Was it a little girl and something else that was kind of controlling her? All of these things are possible. And at this point, you can look back and you can go in any direction in that you want to really go, and you can find something to back you up on it. But what I suggest is you go back to the beginning where it started and actually watch it, because that information is available. And it's available because it's on Sightings. And Sightings is now available for you to see, and go to look up the episodes and watch it. There was even, and I think it's on one of these tapes I did, they did a whole follow-up kind of movie on it called America's Heartland Haunting or something like that, where they tried to follow up with the family. And again, I did an extensive episode on that, and I told everybody how I felt about it. I felt sorry for the guy. I thought they were using him like bait, and I didn't like it too much, and I thought it was crazy. And I thought the first day they went in there and went, okay, take 2 or 3 days to sort this, and then get everybody to do what they're going to do. The ghosts don't want to leave. Tell them they don't have to go cross over. But they can't stay here. Let's sort what you can sort and move on, because this guy is getting harassed, and you can't allow that to happen. And I think allowing that to continue and not doing everything you can to stop a ghost from attacking a living human being, adult or child, is ludicrous. And there's so many things that can be done, in my humble opinion. People can think that that's crazy or what. And again, ghosts aren't pets, my opinion. But if it's not yours, what's wrong with you? Leave him here. We like it for him to be here. It gives us something to talk about. And his soul doesn't deserve to move on, because we need the entertainment. We need the money at the door. We need to do this, this, and this. They need to stay here for our needs. Ghost slavery. How is that right? It's a human being, the essence of a human being, that is a human soul. Like Hans Holzer said, just humans in need of help, whether they want it or not. If they choose, if they understand and they choose because of their mindset or their vibration or what they want to, they're still sorting through it, fine. But they can't continue to be here and haunt this family or scratch this man or make him live in fear. You get my point. I'm sure you get my point. It's ludicrous to me, but that whole story is an absolutely wonderful paranormal investigation, learning, beginning to end, because they're trying out all kind of new stuff. You're sitting there, and you've got parapsychologists from the university, you've got all kinds of different people that are specialists, and I'm amazed. I can't believe this is happening. And the thing that kills me is it has to continue over and over and over and over. It's like, how many times are we going to let this happen? And then why is this kid still in this house? It's just mind-boggling to me. But other than that, it's a pretty good learning situation. So I've got that one, and then I've got a couple other ones. And I also, if you've never gotten the chance to meet the wonderful Echo Bodine, I love Echo Bodine. Her and her whole family are very talented, both ability-wise and artistic-wise. Her brother is also a psychic. And if you look on the episodes that she's in Sightings, she's a medium, had been since she's a young girl. Really got it together, has wonderful classes on her website and everything else. She's still going strong. A wonderful light worker. And I got nothing but respect for her. Anyway, she's on a lot of the sighting shows, and she's on here. So if you never got to meet Echo Bodine, she's here. Hey, Kat. Welcome in, sweetie. So without further ado, here's a short one. This one isn't an investigation, but I thought it interesting, and it's short. And then I've got some other little surprises here for you, too. It's short, but it has something to do with an island in Wisconsin, a ghost island, I think they're calling it, and ghost photography, and how they went about in the 90s. This was an early episode, so it's going to be, thank you, Kat. Yep, TeePublic. And again, if you're going to get anything, they're always going to send you sales in your text messages, your emails, or whatever. Wait on this about once a month, and you can get like sometimes 35% off or 30% off, 25% off. They do. TeePublic's wonderful about that. And then get your stuff. Get a crispy mug, or get you a Sage Against the Machine t-shirt, or one of those cool hats. So yeah, so it lets you see too, along with the clip we saw last Sunday or Monday about the Polaroids that were coming through with the names on them, and they were like direct answers to the questions. This is another type of camera and another way they were looking at it. So I thought it was interesting to bring it up. So we're going to roll that footage. This one's kind of short, though. Here we go.
According to the most recent Roper poll on the paranormal, 18.5 million Americans report having seen a ghost. One of those people contacted us with a remarkable photograph that he took near his home in Hayward, Wisconsin.
Northern Wisconsin is a freshwater fishing paradise, and some say a haven for ghostly apparitions. Skeptics dismiss these stories as folklore designed to lure tourists. But eyewitness accounts are plentiful, and now potential hard evidence has surfaced, an intriguing photograph.
I looked up, and here I see this white figure above the tree line, and it's slowly descending towards the trees.
Al Denninger has been a fishing guide through the waters of the Chippewa flowage for 17 years. He knows these waters like the back of his hand. But last October, he saw something he couldn't explain.
You could see it actually pass through the trees and slowly descend right above the shoreline. And the object was 10, 12 feet tall. I took one picture with the Polaroid. Slowly this object moved down the shoreline that way, towards the west. Moved about 50 yards, stayed there maybe 10, 15 seconds, and slowly ascended right straight up into the sky and was gone.
Denninger claims he photographed this apparition of a human form floating above an area locals call Ghost Island. Later, he had his photograph enlarged for better analysis.
I had the original looked at by a photo expert. He says, first of all, you can't dupe up a Polaroid. He says, well, I can't tell you what it is, but whatever it is, it's really there.
When word of Denninger's photo got out, more eyewitnesses came forward, claiming they'd also seen the apparition.
Two young men were fishing there at midnight, and one of them saw a white-robed figure about 8 feet from the ground, sort of floating among the graves. Al sent them the picture, and they called up and says, that is what we saw.
Stories of discontented spirits haunting Ghost Island have existed since Wisconsin's Chippewa River was dammed in the 1920s, causing floodwaters to engulf the island's historic cemetery. Most of the graves were moved to higher ground, but locals worry about the plots that were left behind. Could the apparitions be restless souls searching for their displaced loved ones?
I've always had an open mind, and I've always figured that you're a little naive to think you're probably the only one in this universe, but whatever I saw, it definitely wasn't from anything I've ever seen before.
If you photographed or videotaped what you believe to be a ghost, or if you had an encounter with the paranormal, our Sightings investigators...
And see, there it was. If you've had an experience, if you've got a picture on Ghost Island, if you have any ghost picture and you'd like us to take a look at it and send it to our lab, and they send it out to universities and, you know, their own, they started developing their own lab and their own group, you know, of trusted individuals. Here's to you, miss. I love this ghost. Isn't that great? So they send out this was I think one of the first shows that did this and started using outside, you know, the viewers' information and like call in with information, you know. That's when somewhere along the line, that's when America's Most Wanted started doing it. It's like, hey, we got a gold mine here, something, you know, this is a wealth of information. We'll get a hotline. And you can remember, you know, the different hosts walking through, and you've got all the volunteer, you know, operators standing by, that kind of thing. And you'll see in here, there's one story where quite a few people sitting at the computer, you know, doing whatever. But you can also take a look at the computers and what they were dealing with back then, how different it is now. And 30 years later, again, over 30, it's incredible. But the same information, the same type of things, the same EVPs that they were picking up that we didn't quite, was that something, you know? Did we hear that? Or are we just hearing what you're telling me I'm hearing? Or is it a class A where it's like, you know, my name is such and such, and then that name links up, or you know, it's just so clear. Nobody has to tell you what it says. I've heard plenty of them in all forms. You know, we heard it live, we didn't hear it, the tape picked it up, but this over here didn't, you know, all the different things. Got a few myself. You've heard them. I mean, it was so distinctive. You could tell that it was two separate people. It was one syllable each. But you could literally tell that they weren't standing. It was coming from two different places. They weren't standing together next to each other. Maybe even, you could even in the inflection almost denote an age feel to the energy of it. You know, that one little girl might have been a little older than the other. And you could tell a thought. No, I'm thinking about it kind of thing, a hesitation. It's incredible. EVPs can be off the chain, or they can be, you know. Did you hear him say, you know, pass the potatoes, Mom? No, I didn't hear that. I heard, Yeah, well, they're just, dude, I get it. They're talking on a different vibration. They're coming in hot. They're coming in low. They're coming in cold. They've never done it before. They don't know what they're doing. They're just reacting because, you walked in on whatever fantasy they were having. There's no telling what they're walking around thinking. What mindset are they in? Shoot, half the people, I mean, don't know what their own mindset is, let alone being able to deduce what this ghost is going about. And they never come right out and tell you. Like I was saying with the radio shows, the four that I know of, that Bryce Bond, if you ever heard of Bryce Bond, he's a parapsychologist in the New York, Long Island area, I believe, in the 70s, 60s and 70s, and a radio host and broadcaster, delightful man from what I understand. Anyway, he went in there and he would handle these things, and he knew what he was doing. You listen to me, you read his transcripts. It was very much like a gentler, kinder Hans Holzer, whereas Hans Holzer was very Austrian. Well, you got to go. You can't stay here. You're a ghost. You're dead. You have to go. You can't stay. And he was just adamant. He wasn't a very smart man who knew what he was talking about. Wrote a lot of books, wide spectrum of supernatural, paranormal, metaphysical. Hans Holzer, but he had a way about him, and he had an MO. And Bryce Bond did as well. He was more of a kinder, gentler, and you can hear. I think he actually plays himself twice in two of the mysteries, but again, this is CBS Radio Mysteries. They're about 45 minutes long, but they actually told the story as best they could in the 45 minutes of a couple of different cases he did. One of them, to show you how ghosts don't come right out and say it. If I ever write another book on ghosts, that's probably what I'm going to call it. Why ghosts don't just come out and say it. The most infuriating thing. And it's called, the title of it, we listened together. It's on this channel, by the way. So there's an episode of it, but it's called The Ghost with a Knife. And what's every time? What are y'all doing? Y'all behave. Y'all behave. Don't make me come back there. Don't make me pull the podcast over. Okay. So Bryce Bond goes in and he's trying to see what's going on. So it's a young couple, 30, 35-ish, young boy, 3 or 4. And it again actually happened somewhere in Long Island. There's something going on in Long Island. I swear. I got to get Brad Olson on here. We got to talk about that. So anyway, there's something definitely going on in Long Island. So this guy, this ghost, is showing up in the house several times, full on apparition they've seen. Standing by the fireplace, the lady of the house explaining this. Plants won't live in her kid's room. They're thinking, you carry on, Ted. What's going on? Settle. So just all these things that somebody who's been doing this for a long time would pick out. It's like, well, wait a minute, carbon dioxide, this, that, okay, there's no explanation why the plant's dying, they watered, all the regular stuff. It's like Sling Blade Paranormal. Did you put gas in it? Somebody make that t-shirt, Sling Blade Paranormal. Did you plug it in? Try unplugging it and plugging it back in again. Let's start there. So anyway, obviously, they've got a haunting because the wife has seen it several times, to the point where she can describe it. She gets very upset and very verklempt when she does, but she can describe him right down to his pleated pants like her father used to wear back in this case, it would have been in the 30s, early 40s, because she's telling it in the 70s, mid 70s. And she's saying that, this is the guy, and he's just standing there with a knife in his hand. I still don't know what the knife was about, but apparently every once in a while he'd pop up, he'd have a knife, which is, unsettling on a Saturday afternoon at 3:00, So there was also a problem with the heater, and the thermostat would be turned up like 90, they'd hear the ghost footsteps coming up the cellar, and they'd hear the door open and close to the cellar, but it wouldn't move. It was all these things. And Bryce Bond comes in and he starts his investigation and he's asking questions, and she's, she's telling her story, and it's like 70s people. And the husband's trying to be very understanding. He's trying to be very stern dad and very concerned. He's like, how do I help my family? What's going on with, the boiler? Something's going on. And Bryce walks him through it and handles it terrific, but the ghost takes so long to tell what it is he's talking about. He can't sort his mind enough to level out with the conversation in the room with the living. He just needs to be able to, it's like a teapot that's just, the water's boiling and the steam is making it whistle. Do you know what I mean? This is what the ghost is, kind of that combustion of pressure and thought and anxiety and anger and focus on whatever they're focused on. Because how many ghosts have we heard that have come through and finally got somebody to listen first time, and they're just blurt stuff like Fred. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It was their fault. I wasn't me. I was careful. I always was careful. I knew what I was doing. It wasn't me. And he just kept repeating that stuff till he got it out of his system. Like, and then he could say a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And as he calmed down, as he leveled out with the vibration. But you normally don't have that kind of energy in the room feeding that with intent and their vibration as you did in that room, or you would with Sybil Leek and Hans Holzler or Bryce Bond. So those are also different things that you can look back and go, how did he handle that? And at that point in time, as much time as they spent in that house, and I'm still talking about the ghost with a knife, it took them the whole, of course, 45 minutes, but in real life, a couple weeks for even somebody that knew what they were doing, that was able to communicate to get that ghost to calm down and tell him what it finally was. And of course, it was the boiler was going to blow. And he had died in bed upstairs, was unable to communicate with his family, communicate his thoughts. And so obviously he has some kind of dementia or something strong to the point of almost like a fever type thing also, where you're having fever dreams and he's thinking it, but he's unable physically, mentally, and verbally to express his concerns. And he died in that bed upstairs somewhere in this house. Like I said, the actual case. With thinking these things in his, I guess, somewhat comatose-like state. But he was still very aware of his fears. I have to get up out of this bed and fix that boiler. It's going to blow and everybody in the house is going to die. His grandson, his daughter, or son and daughter-in-law, whichever it was. And he couldn't communicate verbally. And he died this way. So he stayed in that house and he continued to go up and down the steps. And for the life of me, I can't tell you why he could turn the thermostat up, but he couldn't turn the boiler down. And nobody can really answer that. I don't even think he could, because it took him that long to express what was going on. And once all that stuff got settled, they were able to talk to him, and they were able to talk him across in the 70s. That little radio show had more information, more wealth of information for paranormal investigators or anybody interested in the subject than a whole season of a show that's on right now. Pretty much. On just about any channel. You've got a couple in there that you could pick through and find stuff, like I said earlier. But why are we overlooking the stuff we already have? Right? So there you go. And there's another outlet if you're interested in those 4 episodes. Several of them, I would say at least 3 of them for sure, and probably a couple more I'm forgetting about. But the Bryce Bond episodes are on. We did them with visual effects, as fun as it is, on my show. So they're here under the playlist radio shows and mystery radio classics and mysteries, I think it's called, that playlist, and it's in there. And the other one is psychic ghost psychic, or one of them, but they're all together. You'll see them, they're all really good stuff. But again, another wealth of information, and I forgot about all those till Steve brought them up last Wednesday. I thought I'd mention it. So here's something fun, being the fact that we're still doing it. It's the wrong buttons. Ted, put the seatbelt light on. I'm hitting buttons. We can make it if we hold on. All right. One of the things that I didn't spend nearly enough on, because again, it was such a part of that whole decade for me, because my oldest son was so into them. My youngest was a little bit into them, but not as excited, not as in depth, not as, like I was with new books coming out from like Stephen King or whatever, when I was reading all that and looking forward to the next novel and the next novel and the next book and next book. And that was Goosebumps. And it was such a big deal. And I'll never forget, because I was such a big Stephen King fan, and that's what I read, and Dean Koontz and things like that. And he always saw the books. I said, oh, you got to get a little older before you read that. You got to get a little older before you can understand these stories. They get real deep. And we'd talk about it, but sometimes we listen to an audiobook driving in the car. I mean, he was very, very aware of those stories, and Shining and things like that were going on. So he would save all his money to go to the Books A Million or the Barnes and Noble to buy all the new Goosebumps. And he worked hard for it too. And boy, he'd save. And I remember one time we went, and he had gotten extra, I think it was like, it was losing teeth. So he had tooth fairy money, and then he had birthday money and things like that, saved up. So he was able to pick them quite a few. And because he had a little stack going on. And it was just a little fella. And he went up and he puts his stack up on the, high up. He had to reach it and put it up on the counter. And the young man behind the counter was actually pretty cool with him. And hey, Yoda girl, how you doing, sweetie? He was pretty cool with him. And he's like looking at the books and ringing them up and kind of looking down and talking to him and say, hey, this looks like a good one, and stuff like that. And, and he goes, somebody likes to be scared. He says, you got quite a stack going on here. Somebody likes to be scared. And I can remember him kind of, with just the tips of his fingers on the counter, kind of watching all of it go through and looking at the total and doing all the thing and knowing he had enough money. And he was feeling a pretty cool moment. And his little hat on backwards, little skater. And he said, yeah, I see. He said, I'm working my way up to Stephen King. That was a great line, man. All these Goosebumps, big old stack of, just read. Read, son, read. That's the one who got in trouble for reading for the third time Killer Angels in the third grade. Killer Angels, this thick. Michael and Jeff Shara, this thick. Crazy. But in homage to Goosebumps, I found you this. And this is from, let's see, Joe Talks a Lot. And I wanted to reach out because they put a lot of good commercials together from Goosebumps. But I just thought it would remind you what it was like. Here we go.
Goosebumps collectibles only at Taco Bell. The #1 best-selling author in America, R.L. Stine, wants to give you lots and lots of goosebumps 3 different ways. First, Goosebumps books, where the terror began and the screams go on forever and ever. Then give yourself Goosebumps, the books where you choose from 20 different scary endings. And coming soon, Goosebumps triple header, 3 stories in one monstrous book, 3 times scarier. From Parachute Publishing and Scholastic Inc., available where books are sold. Write us to get information on how to join the all-new Goosebumps fan club. Goosebumps, they're so good, it's scary.
Taco Bell presents Nacho and Dog.
Nacho, is your costume on yet?
Okay, I'm ready.
Finally.
Ta-da!
Ooh, what are you supposed to be?
I'm a big burrito! Now, when you buy a Taco Bell Kids meal, you can get a Goosebumps toy. Get the Rapping Mummy, the Skullmobile, or more. But beware, you're in for a scare. You can collect all 4 Goosebumps toys at Taco Bell.
Oh, how cute! A bean burrito. And what are you?
Taco Bell!
Catch that food, dog!
Mute. I said when Taco Bell was good, cartoons were just crazy. Do you remember the Hunger Force? It was like fries and a shake and a burger that all talked, and the crazy stuff. Ren and Stimpy, all that. I mean, we had them too, but we had Bugs Bunny, so you can't really talk. But anyway, brings back a lot of memories, and for R.L. Stein to come out with those and get young people into reading, I'm always about that. And I was always for Harry Potter when it came out. It was like stupid to not let kids, because anytime you say don't read this or don't look at this, they're going to want to look at it. So I went about just read it, because I'm here. I'm going to walk you through it, and what's, but because I knew I would have read it, and then I wouldn't have had the guidance. Do you know what I'm saying? I was just there. So that was also big. Then the movies. But when you look back over the movies, we kind of talked a lot about the blockbusters that last Sunday that we really remember. Barely touched on them, but Total Recall and all the ones we mentioned, in Titanic, we forget, Twister and all the different Batmans and Catwoman and all those. We touched on those. There was a lot of Westerns that were fantastic and things like that we never touched on. But for this show, I thought it would be interesting to look into this here. And this would be, what was the top 25? Hope I got the right one. Let's see if that's it. Is that it? I think it is. Best horror movies. And this is Eternal Blue Media, and I'm going to give them a nod because they did a terrific job here. And it's just a list, and I totally agree with it. So thank you, Eternal Blue.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
This was one of my favorites. Fantastic movie. Fantastic movie.
Never a moment's peace. What happened? Are you all right?
Everybody was fantastic in that. John Goodman, too. Not bad.
He chopped off his head with his own sword. Even today, the Western Woods is a haunted place where brave men will not venture.
Johnny!
I'm sorry.
I don't remember this one. Is this a remake or something? I don't remember this being out.
Hey, man, are you okay?
Look out. Look out.
Is there something we can do to help? It's weird, huh?
Ah! Not my favorite. Can't forget Freddy.
Miss me?
Can't forget Freddy.
I see you.
I do remember this one.
And I see you, dearie.
Wackadoo, wackadoo, wackadoo. Run.
I don't do that, Kevin.
This
That
was
guy
good.
on the subway. What did I say to you?
What were my words to you? Maybe it was your time to lose. You didn't think so. Lose? I don't lose! I win! I win!
There it
I'm
is.
a lawyer! That's my job! That's what I do!
There it is. Learn how the other side works, folks.
The sad became something like himself again. Claudia.
Terrible vampire.
A very, very naughty little girl.
Terrible, terrible. You can be mad at me if you want, but I'll say it. Terrible vampire. Good flick. Very, very true to actual form, in my opinion. Very good movie. The shame, but very true. And more than likely based on a true case of some sort. I can't prove it. Who can forget the Evil Dead? The Army of Darkness. That whole series. Cult classic. Crazy stuff.
Now, let's talk about how I get back home.
Princess Bride of Horror. Stir of Echoes, yeah, it was very
Take
good.
the bait!
I love Tremors. Looked in the wrong damn rec room, didn't you? I loved Reba in this too. Absolutely loved her. My kind of girl. Another Kevin Bacon. That right there gets you a win at the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. That movie. Do you remember The Faculty?
She's dead.
We got some sugar coming, Scott. In the form of honey. It's coming. Another great flick. This was excellent. And again, watch how the other side works. Very true to form. Very. And ancient practical magic, that's for sure.
Relax, it's only
It's also very true to form.
Now who's pathetic?
Good learning movie. There's a good vampire.
To my home. Enter freely of your own will and leave some of the happiness you bring.
Kind of hard to beat old Gary.
I am Dracula.
That's a tough bar to set. I hated this movie. I hated everything about it. There's just... It's not my cup of tea. There wasn't anything in it. It's not. I'd watch Freddy before I watched that. Because there was some real stuff in Freddy. I absolutely love this. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And that, fun fact right there, that is your the prop guy. Used in several movies. A lot of Quentin Tarantino's. He had all the fun gadgets.
Now she has us.
Never saw it. Maybe I should. Should I watch this movie? So far, I'm like, eh.
What do you think you're doing, Doug?
Heard of it, but I never watched it.
You wanted to know where the ship has been. So now you'll find out.
Is it awesome, Jack? This had its moments, but these type of movies are why you're not going to keep coming, and I'm not going to, like, no. Because I'm going to assume you're a bad guy. Absolutely.
Something to be haunted by.
Highly underrated.
Come with me.
Very creepy.
And be immortal.
based on actual events, not the last part, the origin. It's true. And that is one of my favorite actors in Reservoir Dogs' sister, Michael Madsen. That's Victoria Madsen. Is that her name, Victoria? And the biggest one for us.
Hey, come on.
Very,
My dad keeps us gone. Come on.
very on point and true to fact and form. I See Dead People, Sixth Sense. Beautifully done. I know people that go through that, and it's horrid. This one, they take it or leave it. They take it or leave it. I can't watch this. I'm gonna turn my back.
Amy,
I can't do it.
whatever you're thinking about doing, please don't do it.
This scene right here won the whole decade. It won the whole decade.
Shh, darling. Trust me.
God, stay.
It's for the best.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Very good.
Very slow.
Very well done. The original It.
Very slow.
Not gonna beat it.
And when you're down here with me, you float through.
Second one they tried.
I saw you with the box. What was in the box?
Terrible movie.
I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, baby.
Absolutely horrid because it's so
what's in the
true.
box? What's in the fucking box?
What's in the box?
Just told
You
Speaking of
lied. You're
AJ,
a fucking liar. Shut up.
he did a great commercial
He wants you to shoot him. No.
using that scene. If you haven't
You're
seen
one
it,
of
you're
Jack
missing
Crawford's,
something.
aren't you?
Very
I
well
am, yes.
done. Haunting
May I see
movie.
your credentials? Certainly.
Haunting movie. It was amazing. I saw it on my anniversary.
Closer, please.
It wasn't quite the movie we should have gone to see on that type of a
Closer.
night. This is bad timing. And my dog ate my anniversary roses. Which wasn't a good day. So there you go. Thanks again to Eternal Blue for that, because if I had put it together, it would have been pretty much the same. There was a couple on there that I wouldn't even give mention to. I'm not a big Blair Witch Project thing, this found footage thing. It annoyed me so much because of what it did to the paranormal. I didn't see it as an art thing and groundbreaking and all that. I just didn't see it that way. I saw it very much. I think I felt very much like Jim Mars felt when King came out with 11/22/63 and said again, Oswald did it alone. Yeah, it had all the cool time jumps and portal things and the effects of time travel and what would you do and the paradox, meeting yourself things and stuff. All that was very cool. But he looked at it as not an expression of art and all the things that I'm saying about Blair Witch. He looked at it as people are going to see that. And their memory and their visual is going to plant that memory that this is how it is. And when Blair Witch did that, they had people on there that actually said underneath of them, parapsychologist, Harvard University, whatever, totally made up. They presented it as true. It was made up from the word get. And then they played it as true after the fact. It was a very Milli Vanilli kind of thing. And now you've got a bunch of people tying sticks together, hanging them from trees and standing in the corner, and somebody else is and people, this just fuels these wackadoos into doing some more crazy stuff. And it just takes away from, actual stuff that really is happening and makes that look less true. So when, that's when you started to hear all this, expert this, expert that. People work hard to get up there to be a consultant for something. And most people have no clue what they're putting under their names when they edit it and produce it. You know, people have called me an expert. The first thing I say after they introduce me is, I'm no expert. There are no experts, in my opinion. We all know that. It's like John Keel had on his business card, an authority of nothing. You know, but you know what you kind of are comfortable knowing at this point. Jacob Slatter, I saw it a long time ago. Don't recall it. Couldn't recall it all at the top of my head. I'd have to see it again. But I remember when I saw it, Silence of the Lamb. Was it terrifying? I take your word for it, Jack. You always tell us to watch. No, I don't know. I'm not a Hellraiser. It wasn't my thing. I mean, I get it. Like, you know, things like The Cube and, you know, Saw. I'm not a Saw person. Nope. I just look at that, you know, like you're just giving crazy people more, you know, more thoughts. I used to watch a show. What was it? The CSI one? The one that had the real smart guy. You know, he was like on the spectrum, and gosh, I can't remember what it was, but it started out the first year. It was pretty cool. And they're telling you all these things. Of course, you realize, you know, lab work doesn't work that quick. DNA doesn't work that quick. This doesn't work. You know, it's all BS. But it's things that could be possible if you could move that quickly and the machine worked, you know. And people actually were dedicated like that. But and they have to speed it up. It wasn't CSI. It wasn't the original CSI. It was a spinoff. I can't remember what it was. But anyhow, they started off, the first season was very interesting and very well done, and then they just started getting into more gross and showing more things and doing more unnecessary stuff. And I'm looking at it going, this is like a how-to. They're just giving the crazy people, you know, a how to do this list. It's insanity. You know, there's like, I have walls and they're thick. You know, it's just like, I don't approve of that, you know, and it's not my thing. It's not what I'm in it for. You know, I like a good jump scare like anybody else, but some things are just unnecessary. I don't need to watch somebody peeling somebody else's skin off to, you know, to get it. I like the stuff like, you know, the librarians where they're going to, you know, hunt down an ancient artifact, kind of like an Indiana Jones, but the things actually exist. And there are some truth to the articles and the myth and the legend and the power being put in the wrong hands. So it's, you know, kind of like a national treasure kind of thing. It's called Librarians. Pretty good. There's several different shows like that that are based on small groups of people going out and doing big things behind the scenes without, you know, ever getting any kind of accolades for it or otherwise, you know, and they're very important things. And I believe that kind of stuff goes on all the time. Hey, Trusty Turnip, welcome in. So some of those people, as I speak, back in the 90s were the people that were on Sightings. And of course, they're trying to do a show and they're trying to do it right. And they're learning as they go. And you could see them grow. They were almost 10 years. They were, I think, about 8 years, 91 and 98. With several movies in between and several long cases that they went back and kept investigating as things changed and checked up on the people and tried to check up and, you know, and let everybody know too, just like a follow-up or an update or whatever. They were famous for that as well. That also kind of set the form for other shows that came along after the fact. They learned a lot probably from In Search Of. And, you know, being in the 70s, late or mid 70s on, had, you know, In Search Of had a good long run. And all the movies that were coming out around that time, we mentioned those, you know, Charity of the Gods and, you know, Monsters, all that kind of stuff. So the draw was there. But now you had this show that was reaching out to the public and the public getting to speak. And you had your wackadoos. You're always going to have them. You know, your I call them the paranormally Munchausen, because they're getting off on the fact that their whole family is suffering from this occurrence. In fact, there was a very good depiction of Munchausen syndrome in The Sixth Sense. And that was, do you remember when he was getting visited by the girl, the young girl who wanted him to go and give a message to her father and give her a box? And she had been recording her mother poisoning her and then getting off on the attention that she was getting from family and friends and the medical people and everything else. And this is not as rare as people would like to think it is. And there are people in the paranormal like that. And I mentioned earlier the Sally house. That whole family, there was something, again, people aren't thinking great. You've got a room full of adults. You have one adult being scratched and just sitting there and telling you how scared they are and how worried they are and how their life is disrupted and they're not getting sleep. And you're looking at all these nice things all around. Now, don't get mad at me if I sound kind of sexist here. But again, we're talking about the 90s and this situation in this nuclear home. The mom was there. You didn't hear her talking about work, and she had a young baby. And this kid, 20-something, I'm sure, he's working construction. And he's paying, he's doing this house, and they've got nice furniture, and it's a nice, well put together little 90s house with their shag carpet and their finger hut furniture and all that kind of stuff. You could just feel it. Feels 90s. And that's not putting it down. That's saying, man, they're handling their stuff. They have a lovely family. They look like they have common sense, right? But here's a whole house full of adults inside of this chaos. And here's this child sitting in a baby seat. And one point in time, this kid gets scratched or smacked or something in the face. And they're just walking around with the baby, just keeping it there. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so scared. Get the hell out of the house. Get the kid out of the house. Get your psychics in there. Get Peter James in there. Sort it out. Handle it. Get rid of them. Clear the house and move on. That's me. I'm sitting here and that's what I'm thinking should happen. But they went through a whole lot of steps, and there it is. It's on videotape, and it is an amazing paranormal investigation. As frustrating as it is meticulously videotaped and sound recorded. And, they're walking around and trying to get all kinds of readings, temperature readings and EMF readings and stuff. And this is really the birth, not so much the birth, but where it was taking off and being noticed. And people went, I want to do that. And then companies said, you know what? I want to make that equipment. You know what? I can make that equipment better. And I can make these things, and I can think like a Tesla who literally came up with a spirit radio. At the same time, Edison was trying to come up with his. I forget what he called his. He had a stranger name for his, I think. Did he? Does anybody remember offhand? But both around the same time. But the thing was, people miss that, and they talk about the battle. And of course, it was a battle. Edison was an ass. He stole everybody's stuff. He hired people to come up with things and stole it, took credit for it. And the people that were working there were glad to get it until they realized what had been done to them. And business is business. Move right along. It's like the music company. Sign your contract, sign away your life. Now you can't sing happy birthday to your kid in your living room because we own you. That was Edison. So all of that's there, as well as some other cases I believe they brought really to the light. And that was one of those was The Entity. And we all remember The Entity in the movie The Entity with, what was it? Karen Black. What the heck was her name? Oh, she was good too. If I stop thinking about it, it'll come to me. But anyway, Barbara Hershey. There you go. Barbara Hershey. So that was an amazing book. I read the book. That's one where I read the book and then I saw the movie. And of course, I had to watch the edited version that came on TV. I missed it. I don't think I saw that one in the theater. So that one, understanding that one from 3 different aspects and really trying to follow up on it after the fact and reading everything I could get my hands on. That one also started on Sightings, and they were there. Um, got quite a bit of evidence from it and got very excited about a couple of pictures with some lights that went through all of their filters and came out like, you know, they couldn't debunk it, and they were excited about it. I saw some other things in there that I would have got excited about too, but again, it was one of those where they kind of, like Barry Taft said, he thought it was pretty much following her. He thought it was like her having some kind of there was all kind of speculation and theories on that thing. Look, there was something there that was attacking and breaking this woman down, and it wasn't just one entity, and she wasn't the only one that saw it. And again, they're sitting in a room discussing this like it's not chaos going on around them. You know, they're trying to blame everything else. And that one's very frustrating for me too. Because again, here's somebody going through a lot of trauma. Can you imagine going through something like that? She was being raped by demons. She couldn't see. That other people could see doing it and couldn't stop it. So again, very much like the last couple of shows we had where the mom was, I think it was the Sightings. The mom was trying to lay on top of the kid because she was getting pinched and bit and slapped and all this stuff, and she's trying to block it, and it was still happening while she was laying on top of her. How in the world? The manifestation of that. I think it's also a mind bend when something just goes against all your understanding and all the things that you think you know, and physics, and bam, you know. It's another way of breaking you down because you're like, I can't believe what I'm seeing, or, you know, what I know is happening, but it's bending my mind. And that's part of them taking control and getting the upper hand. So that's also something we learned from them. There was another case, and we're going to see it here tonight. Yeah, we got enough time. Very interesting. I think toward the end there, and I'm going to see if I can find the second half. Maybe we'll show it tomorrow. But because there's, I know at very least, another part to this one story. They ended fairly well here, and they said they'll keep up with it. Well, more stuff happened, and of course, more people wanted to go back, and more people wanted to investigate, and we wanted to get this guy on it because he says he wants to go at it this way with his investigative, you know, ideas and theories, and they do that, and it's a pretty wild case, but it's a little different because of the amount of stuff that was going on, and because I know the medium that's walking through there has an amazing ability and understanding, and it's a little strange when you have all these cameras and his crew and everything else because they want you to do it their way, and you're trying to do it your way, and you're trying to describe what you're going through. If this woman just walked through there, she'd be sorting it like bing, 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 bing. A little bit more. Because her and her brother are amazing. They've had all kinds of shows and everything else. And of course, I'm talking about Echo Bodine. So without further ado, I'll shut up here and we'll watch at least 2 of these little investigations and just showing how they were really trying to get it all together in the 90s. And I think they were doing a good job. I think that was scary stuff. Boo. I think they were doing a good job. Early years, and then it was a how-to, right? Nuts.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. At the turn of the century, going to the poor farm was more than just an expression. It was a real place where destitute families, the sick, and the mentally ill were given shelter. Some of the old poor farms still exist today, mostly as tourist attractions. One of them in rural Nebraska was turned into a private home. And every family who's lived there tells the same story. The farm is haunted.
The fantastic Peter James. Love Peter.
Perched on a windy Nebraska hillside, this homestead is one of the few remaining landmarks of the great land rush of the late 1800s, and its inevitable result. An underclass of poor and needy pioneers whose American dream had turned sour. It was built in 1884 as a poor farm, and for 56 years, it was a temporary home for more than 400 people who lived and worked here.
Tramps came when they had frozen feet. Old people came when they had no place to retire. People came in when they were sick. Often they came to the poor farm to die.
In 1940, the poor farm was shut down and sold off. Among its early tenants was Jerry Clausen, who first rented the property in 1960 when her son, Stan, was just 7 years old. As soon as the Clausens settled into the main house, they felt an eerie sense that they were not alone.
We could be sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden we'd look, and there was a dark shadow peeking around the doorway like somebody was there looking at us, you know, and it'd be there for just a few seconds, and we'd get up and go look, and there was nothing there.
The things that happened out here, those are things that live with you forever. You don't forget them.
The haunting activity seemed worse at night. Jerry's 3 children would not venture outside. Inside, they would not be alone in any one room, even for a second. A strange and frightening presence was disrupting their lives.
Sometimes we'd hear a car like out in that little lane.
So weird.
Running out there, but we'd look out, there was no car to be seen. Out in the
Now, remember what we said about cars the other day? About Telly's story and how many different car things? Isn't that wild? How many ghosts are actually driving ghost cars, and we can hear them, we can see them. In fact, more than one case, we can get in them and ride with them. That's insanity. Think about that. And then tell me what ghosts can do and can't do. Pretty nuts, right? I like her. I like what she said. I ain't going in there.
the barn, the lights would go on for no reason at all because we never used the barn.
And the light would come on, and then after a little while, the light would go back off again. Like somebody was just standing there flicking the switch on, flicking the switch off.
And the kids would say, Mom, aren't you going to go down and see why that light is going to? It scared them. I said, there's no way I'll go down to that barn. So, never went.
After only 8 months, the Clausens moved out. They were the last in a long string of tenants who had come but not settled into the old poor farm. The property sat vacant for the next 30 years. The main house was condemned, then demolished. The old barn was overtaken by weeds. Then, in 1989, Kathy and Ray Drawbridge bought the decaying property. They were disenchanted city dwellers who wanted to bring up their daughter, Sarah, in a rural environment. To them, the dilapidated poor farm didn't seem to have any problems a lot of sweat and a new coat of paint couldn't cure.
The real estate man on the way just mentioned that it had been an old poor farm, and we didn't think anything of it. We didn't know what that was. We just made a joke out of it and thought it was a good place for us.
Working weekends, Kathy and Ray spent 2 years clearing the land and renovating the old buildings. They experienced some haunting activity then, but dismissed it as the product of their overactive imaginations. It wasn't until they assembled a modular home on the foundations of the old poor farm's infirmary that the ghostly incidents became impossible to ignore.
When we go into the buildings, we would get the door slamming shut, feelings of being watched, strong enough that you'd actually leave the building to see if someone had pulled in.
It was the same ghostly car crunching on the gravel that Jerry Clausen remembered hearing 30 years ago.
It is so real sounding. I have even gone out onto the porch thinking that maybe it's on the road and I'm just not seeing it.
At first, the isolated incidents were curious, but not particularly threatening. Then, when the family moved in for good, things changed.
We'd come home from work and the thermostat would be on full all the way up. The house would just be cooking. At first we blamed our daughter, but it was happening several days in a row. The back door would be locked, the house would be secure when we go to work, we'd come home. The back door would still be locked, but it'd be swinging open.
The haunting activity escalated, and Kathy claims it took a destructive turn when Ray was attacked by an unseen force while trying to clear some brush.
He was a little frustrated by then and started to do a little cussing and got a little agitated, and he suddenly bent over with a sharp pain in his side.
When he looked down, Ray found an L-shaped tear in his brand new shirt.
The next day at work, my husband doubled over in pain. He went to the doctors, they did an x-ray, and they saw something on his side told him it was a kidney stone to go home. A couple days later, he was feeling better. He had to have another x-ray, and it was gone.
Kathy came to believe that the ghosts of the past were somehow trying to reach out to the present. She began to research the poor farm's history, searching for clues to the identity of the haunting presence.
Caring for people.
Sightings asked paranormal investigator Peter James to visit the Drawbridge home and give the family his psychic impressions of the site. He was told nothing of the property's history or the experiences of its many occupants.
I'm getting a sense that there is a female in this house, and I have a feeling her name is Sarah. And I feel that she was very much in control and a very powerful female is what I feel. Along with her other domestic duties that she performed.
Peter sensed that Sarah liked the warm family feeling in the house.
And Sarah tells me, I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving.
Peter did not know that Sarah had already made her presence known to the family.
One night, my husband and I were sitting watching the evening news, and all of a sudden he glanced towards the hallway and turned back and immediately got goosebumps and was like, oh my God, there's someone in the bedroom. The vision he saw was so real, so clear of a woman.
Peter also felt a strong ghostly presence in the farm's old subterranean ice house. This is where the dead were prepared for burial.
There was also a cook that, do you know if there was a person of color here?
Yes.
Kathy compared Peter's psychic impressions with the historical information she had already collected. There were 2 Sarahs, but neither was a cook. Then Kathy remembered a letter she'd received from the farm supervisor's son. He wrote of his fond childhood memories of a cook who lived on the farm for many years.
She was very close to the family. She was a slave when she was 12 years old, so she told them. And she helped in the kitchen until she got too old. They called her Auntie. Auntie had her own bedroom on the main floor close to the kitchen, and that is where she died.
Auntie's real name was Sarah.
There it is. It's right here on her card. You know, that's her first name or given
Peter
name.
James,
Sarah.
baby.
It was just like, this is it. It just clicked. You know, this is her.
Peter was also drawn to the old stable. He didn't know that in this last doorway, the family had already experienced a terrifying encounter of their own, and yet this is where Peter stopped.
Now,
interesting. We were already carrying water around. Look.
Here I'm getting a lot of resistance. Here I'm getting, like, I shouldn't go in there, but I'm getting a lot of resistance here. Shh, listen, listen. Hello? Who's here?
It was here that Sarah and Kathy had seen the shadows of a tall man.
This person died within this vicinity, was someone who was very aggressive and very forceful, and the others tried to separate him from the rest.
The corner always seems dark, and every time we seem to put an animal in there, they die. We use it for storage. I mean, I got tired of washing the blood off the walls.
What?
Time after time, Peter's impressions matched known history.
Whoa! It also feels like there might have been maybe a temporary burial ground back here somewhere. They may have at one time buried the deceased and then dug him up and moved him.
The next day, Kathy showed Sightings these pictures. The farm's burial ground had been only a few yards away from where Peter was standing. The graves had been empty since 1955,
more do you need, right?
when the state had moved all the remains to a mass plot in a municipal cemetery.
I feel that an entire family of about 7 people in particular lost their lives here some time ago. And it feels like they were stricken with either cholera or typhus or typhoid.
In the old registry, Kathy pointed out that in 1894, the entire Underwood family died of typhoid in the old infirmary.
Actually, it was mother, father, 2 daughters, and a son. So it was very close.
Despite their experiences, the Drawbridge
It was very close. Did you hear what Mr. James just said? And the family died of typhoid. Excuse me? So it's fun to, look, there's a lot here. Tell me you haven't, in the past 15 minutes, seen more evidence based on, if you believe the fact that he didn't know anything before he went there, based on the fact that, you may or may not, know that about Peter James's integrity or whatever. But let's just assume he didn't, and everything he just said was what he got from his abilities. He keeps hitting it. Bam, 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 bam. Just like he did at Alcatraz, just like he did in other places, all through this show and several others he was on. And this evidence is out there. And yet we keep acting like we don't, psychics never did anything. They're always wrong. They're reading, they're reading your mind, all that. She didn't know it. So again, a lot of these cases from the 90s, from the 70s, in Search Of and several others we talked about, there is so much evidence and so much helpful information if you're really trying to learn about this stuff, right? And then you've got little things like she just said. It's like, it was close. Honey, that was as spot on as I've ever heard. I think he said the number, 6 or 7 or whatever he said, and it was only like 6. Or again, we're nitpicking here. This man pulled out of nowhere this stuff. Obviously something's going on here. Yeah, he did a great job on the Queen Mary too. I know that's not what you're saying, Scott, but you went on to Queen Mary. But Peter James had a really good one on there too. I'll see if I can get it to show you. But he's just amazing.
Family continues to restore the old poor farm and share its rich history with others. Peter James believes this will please the spirits.
Our theory is that the farm is actually starting to come back to life. There's no way I'd leave. I feel total
And what is going on with this goat?
To the people who lived here and the land.
During Peter James's tour, Kathy Drawbridge took notes on Peter's psychic impressions. She has since researched many of the names and descriptions Peter felt in the house and on the farm. Through state and county records, Kathy has confirmed the actual existence of many of the people that Peter claimed to be in spiritual contact with during his investigation.
Peter James, ladies and gentlemen. He's a man. He's a man. He had lovely hair. I love the mustache and the dark. I mean, it worked for him. Bye-bye. Back down the stairs you go. But Peter James, yeah. He was hot. He was hot. He really was. I mean, as far as hitting notes and just pulling it. Just pulling it out of nowhere. Phenomenal. This one is the one I told you about with Echo Bodine, I believe.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. When the Lee family of Black Forest, Colorado contacted Sightings, it was their last resort. The Lees were exhausted, both emotionally and financially. They'd spent everything they had trying to cope with the terrifying haunting in their rustic mountain home. When Sightings saw photographs the Lees had taken of the supposed entity, an investigative team was quickly dispatched. With the majestic Rocky Mountains as a backdrop,
the footprints,
Black Forest, Colorado seemed like a picture-perfect destination for Steve and Beth Lee. For 5 years, the Lees rented homes in the area until they decided this was the place they wanted to set down roots. Strangely, as soon as they made the commitment to stay, the paranormal force wanted them out.
We came home and it was like the 4th of July in our living room and in our bedroom. We had all kinds of lights flashing through. We would hear people walking, or it sounded like people walking across the roof. We would lay in bed at night and hear chains dangling. One night we woke up and we heard orchestra music. Just strange things started happening.
The Lees did not immediately assume that this was the work of a ghost or a poltergeist. They searched for a conventional explanation. A sophisticated burglar alarm was installed. Security cameras surveilled their property. Beth hired private investigators and queried state and federal agencies. So far, these efforts have added up to more than $30,000.
Look at these computers, guys.
We basically used all of
Remember
our
that?
savings. We've used all of our things we ever invested. We've used the college funds, the whole works, trying to figure this out.
The Lees have been gathering an impressive body of evidence that some strange force is at work here. There are audio tapes of inexplicable noises, statements from multiple eyewitnesses, and bizarre photographic images.
Things started coming out in the photographs, and which I thought it was a light leak and, camera messing up. So that's when I changed cameras and started taking a lot more pictures. I took a picture right over against my wall, and when we got it back, it had some fog in it with an image it looked like of a face. I'm getting the same image in the fog outside the house and in front of the house and back, no matter where I take it.
The images contradicted the Lees' belief that the disturbances were caused by electronic interference, atmospheric conditions, or intruders. These photos convinced them to search in a new paranormal direction. When Steve Lee contacted Sightings for help, we called in longtime photographic consultant Edson Williams. Williams is an expert in creating special effects on film. He is trained to detect trick photography.
Of all the pictures I saw, this is certainly one of the most curious. It would be difficult to recreate that dot on a single exposure. This dot caught my eye because this is the only instance where there's both a hazy aberration and a very sharp dot. And also these are indoor. This is the first and only dot I've seen that was inside the house. This image was probably the most interesting of all the images to me. It has a light beam that seems to be emanating from the ceiling. It has a slight glow around the top, and the light has a slight bend to it, which also I thought was very, very interesting. As it comes down, it gets a little thicker and has about a 5 or 6 degree bend midway through the beam.
If this is not trick photography, what is it? Sightings offered to send an investigative team to Black Forest.
I'm kind of at the point now where I have the best in the field saying, we don't know. And so that's why y'all are here, because we're kind of at the point now where, if we have to accept it as paranormal, I guess we will.
The investigation focuses on 3 areas where activity is most pronounced. An exterior wall adjacent to the Lee's satellite dish.
Now, that's a red flag for me. What do you guys think? Satellite dish. Where's my energy people? What kind of effect are you putting out? Are we putting out a fear cage there? I mean, this isn't my field as far as understanding. Is there something that, is creating, behind that satellite dish on that wall that would be creating some kind of a pull, or could it affect a portal if there was already something natural going on the land? What are you guys thinking there? Because it seems to be focusing a lot there, and they seem to just skim over it. They do go and investigate it later, but they just seem to skim over that fact. And I don't know if that's something that we've come to understand since the 90s a little bit better. And they just weren't focusing on it then, because they weren't talking a lot about fear cages and, where you can be in there around all of that electronics, and it's creating hallucinations and stuff, where you're seeing things, you're nauseous and you're sick. That's what I'm talking about. Is there anything like that going on behind a satellite dish, or no? Even that creating in the shape of it against a wall. What do you guys think? I don't know.
The living room. And upstairs in the master bedroom. The Sightings team brings in multiple cameras and highly sensitive wireless microphones.
A lot of equipment, folks.
The second crew, hired by the Lees, records our team so they can learn how to conduct follow-up investigations.
There she is.
Psychic Echo Bodine has been brought in to locate paranormal hotspots, which we will attempt to substantiate with a thermal imaging system.
Any slight thermal changes the camera will see. We take the temperature information and convert it to color, and there's 256 different colors that we're displaying on the screen.
Less than an hour into the investigation, unusual interference completely wipes out the team's audio system. It coincides with Echo Bodine's first psychic impressions of a threatening force.
I sat down and I was trying to listen to him, and I became aware of several voices over here. And so I turned around, and there's a male spirit standing right there.
She has great hair.
In the precise place
Who's Peter
where Echo is
James?
pointing, thermal imaging reveals an anomalous hotspot in the rafters.
The
Wonder
heat
if you have
reads
good
as light blue,
abilities if
while the
your
rest of
hair
the ceiling
feathers.
area reads in darker, cooler blues and pinks.
He's responsible for the things that have happened, and he will continue to be responsible for the things that will continue to happen. He considers this to be his place, basically.
A few minutes later, an unseen force pushes a heavy video camera off its sturdy tripod.
What just happened with the camera?
Well, that camera was set up here on the tripod. It was locked in, and all of a sudden,
so you thought.
It just took a header right off the tripod and landed on this light stand here and bent it.
The camera is undamaged, and the investigation continues in Steve and Beth's bedroom. Here, Echo receives her strongest psychic impressions.
What I'm feeling is this room is absolutely full of spirits. This room attracts spirits from the past. This is not a restful place. This is not a restful room to sleep in.
Again,
You got a
there is
portal
physical
there.
evidence of an unexplained intruder. A slow, hollow thumping is picked up by a police scanner in a corner of the bedroom. It's also picked up by the Sightings audio operator and by Echo Bodine. It is unlike any kind of known electronic interference.
Steve turned on his scanner, and initially we heard that exact same noise, but now we're hearing something else, and it started out really slow. It sounded like sort of like footsteps, and now it's gotten a little faster, and this is how it sounds.
This is compelling evidence.
What do you guys think about this theory? A lot of these cabins and stuff, obviously it's cabin, it's been freshly built. I don't know if they did it themselves, the Amish came in, I don't know. But either way, that land looks somewhat freshly cleared, to put the house there. I think in a lot of these situations where you've got something very rural, there's not a lot of life and a lot of energy going on around, and you've obviously had things happen there in the past. If you have anything, again, unknown, like ley lines or rivers, or we know quartz and rock and things like that. What I mean is things that happened in the past, and you have these wandering souls, these earthbounds. We know they can go anywhere if they're not stuck in their own cage and kind of waited there. What if you're in a rural place like that in the woods or whatever, and there's a lot of, because of the past, massacres and skirmishes and wars and people just dying of disease and living and dying on that land over the years. Now there's not a lot of living going on other than nature. There's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of energy being churned up. Then people come in there and clear land and move in, and now there's a family. They're creating different shapes, putting up things, energy things like satellite dishes and obviously electric, and digging wells and moving water and changing the scenery and all those things, taking down trees. It shows a lot of activity in multiple levels that wasn't there before. So now things are getting drawn there. And if you had anything, like I said, with energy or creating portals out of shapes, I don't know what this is about shapes and things coming out of the corners where the walls meet. So you've got several different angles there coming out of corners and ceilings and corners and floors. There's got to be something up there. And also you've got these big, huge mirrors in this bedroom. Where did they come from? Is this anything attached to furniture that they have or them? It's all those factors to bring in as well. But what do you think about that rural theory where all of a sudden you have this life happening and there might be somebody in the house that has abilities or something else that makes the light brighter and draws them in like bugs to a flame? I know when I lived out in the country, I could stick my head out the back door and I could hear all the bugs and I could hear all the things and I knew they were out there. But until I flicked out the porch light and I turned the porch light on, they'd all right toward that light. Turn it off and they were still there, but they weren't so concentrated. So kind of like that. Could be elementals as well. Now, Echo's picking up again. They were in there a very long time. And this is a very short clip of this. I know her MO and how Echo goes thoroughly through things, and she's going to give history on people that she sees there and tell them, okay, this person's attached to you. She's going to sit at the table and she's going to get into, each person that lives at the house and stuff. And they're not showing all that, but she's more than aware of portals and all this other stuff. She went into Mackey's and pretty much cleaned that place out, as bad as that place is. And she's a pistol. So I know that she did that here. I just know that later on, when there's a second part of this, that there's something about portals brought in here, and I can't remember how they were manifested or woke up or created by all these angles in this house. So consider all those things and think about that when you finish this up.
That some kind of physical disturbance is affecting the Lee home. But the force seemed to be most evident in the emotional effect it had on members of the investigative team.
I, for one, would like to get out of here.
In the living room, Echo is asking Beth to recall some of her feeling of terror and anxiety when the feelings return unannounced.
All of a sudden, I felt like something was just holding me, and it was cold, and I wasn't sitting, I wasn't standing, and I couldn't breathe, and I was lightheaded, and I feel just like that right now.
Yeah, like it's almost like somebody opened up a cold winter door.
But they're holding you and kind of going like
right here.
this.
Here, it's growing again.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger again. Unbelievable.
I have got to move for just a second.
It's really strong.
I've just got to get away from here.
Strong
wow.
presence here. Unbelievable.
With the emotions, there is more electronic interference. There seems to be a connection, and the team decides to move outside to the area between the living room's exterior wall and the satellite dish. It is here that the intersection of the physical and the emotional overtakes a member of the Lee's camera crew.
What's wrong, Sherry?
So that it'll release her.
I can't explain my arms. My arms feel...
It's going inside of her, is what Echo said.
It's in my chest, my chest, my arms, my legs.
Echo told her to keep saying, clear me now. Keep talking. Come on.
I'm clear.
Let's get to bed again, going.
Okay.
What is this?
All right.
What is this?
It's okay, Sherry, don't. Sherry, don't. It's just what they want you to do. Stay calm. Stay calm.
I want to go away.
It's okay. It's like it's an energy that's pulling on me. At the same time, it's pulling on her.
What is it?
As soon as she left the house, the terror subsided and was completely gone less than 24 hours later. It's a phenomenon that Echo Bodine believes is a direct result of the more than 20 restless spirits she believes are trapped inside this house.
On a 1 to 10 scale, it's a 10. The activity is monumental.
This preliminary investigation confirms what the Lee family has felt for more than a year. But more work will have to be done to determine why their home is being targeted and what it will take to appease the spirits here.
Mainly, I just want a normal life again and to get it past us and get on down the road.
Since our investigation, the unseen forces inside the Lee home have turned violent. Steve Lee recently sent us this photograph of a large scratch across his forehead. There was no scratch on the negative. The following day, as this home video shows, Steve developed a large, painful welt on his forehead. His doctor can't explain the cause of the injury. The Lees believe that this welt was caused by violent energy directed at Steve by an evil spirit within the house. They have agreed to update sightings if this strange phenomenon continues. And we will continue to update you.
Cute little ghosts. So I know they mentioned the satellite dish. And again, I'm reaching out to you guys and saying, what do you think? Because I don't know that they focused on that. I don't know if they brought it up in the second one, but she goes back there. That's where she gets hit with this emotional charge of whatever trying to jump in or affecting her. It's affecting Echo. It's, but when they went back behind there. So is that possible because of the shape of it, just a concentrated energy? Is it something that's pulling in energy that it's using? I don't know. I don't know enough about it to give an opinion, but it seems to me that something's going on there. I know, like I said, Echo could go in there and get a lot of them to move on. Like Peter James will say something like he said in the last one, she's not leaving, I know with Sally House, he went back several times. That was just a cluster because they started out with all the wrong people as far as bringing in and getting a lot of different opinions, and people probably well intended intention, went in there and tried to do a lot of things and had people pulled in a lot of different directions. That can happen. Probably way too much in these cases, I think. Because excuse me, it's just a cluster. And the people at the house don't know what's going on, or the people at the business, whatever. And the investigators are all in different separate teams, all trying to kind of work together, but not really sharing data and everything else. Later on, Sightings kind of gets a handle on it and sees that and starts pulling the same people in continuously to finish up on something, and maybe adding somebody else to it and having a round robin about the whole situation. And I think you can really learn a lot like that. The more people you have involved in something that have the right intent, that are willing to just talk about it. We're not one-upping, or we're not, our evidence is better than yours or anything like that. It's like, this is what we found. What did you guys get? If you're sending the same crew in there and they're getting the same repeated EVP over and over again, then are you just getting waves from the past, that are still out there echoing back and forth, or stuck in time, whatever, playing back like a record, stone tape theory? Are you getting that? Or is it somebody that's on the same wavelength, on the same tone, the same voice, the same cadence, and they're answering questions, Okay, now you've got it. It's a different thing. And if you don't have the groups talking about this stuff and putting it all together, I think at first Sightings tried to be that group where they were filtering it all back through them and then trying to put it into a story, which makes perfect sense. But at the same time, I think over those years, they started seeing how important this was and how many call-ins they had and how popular it was. And they really tried to fine-tune it as they went. And I think it's rare too, and they need the head nod for this, because a lot of, I don't want to say reality, because it almost seems like it's a different paranormal reality, let's say, where you're assuming they're doing investigations just recently and they're putting out the evidence, and what they found this season, that kind of show. And the groups, and the people, characters, whatever. It seems like in some cases, a lot of them would just keep piling on the new equipment and the new stuff, and let's try this, and that still goes on, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what I mean. What I mean is Sightings kind of changed their whole structure, not just of how they did the show. They kept the format. It's unusual. They kept the format, but they changed the structure behind the scenes to really handle. Somebody sends a ghost photo. What do we do with it? How do we tell? All right, we'll send it here. How does that work? Can we send it here and here and get everybody's opinion on it, and then bring it in and filter it through that? Very cool. UFO photos. Well, can we use the same people for ghost photos? Sure, why not? Can we also bring in the manufacturer of the film or the manufacturer of the camera or, blah, blah, blah. All these kind of things. They actually changed the structure of how they dealt with evidence that they were receiving and the people that they used to get it. And it was very interesting to watch it change. And again, I bring up Sally House because that one spanned over such a long amount of time. Them going into it and coming back and updating and all this other stuff. I think when I did the last show, it's been a couple of years, but I think off the top of my head, I think that one spanned like over a 3-year time during the show. So it went from spanned over a couple of seasons, maybe even skipped one in between, so it seemed longer, something like that. So the people changed, the people learned, and it grew, and how they dealt with the evidence and everything else grew, and they started really getting into like some different interesting things, like with the entity that, of course, had different and wild evidence and the witnesses, and of course, I had that whole underlying that incredible invasion of gosh, what's YouTube friendly, intertube friendly words? Let's see, unwanted hanky panky of the paranormal kind. Do you think that one will get through? So, folks, we've had episodes shut down here because a ghost unlifed himself in a closet with a long cotton braided piece of material there. It's nuts. You try not to get demonetized because, if the ads play, in the beginning and the end, I mean, all told, you might get, 49 cents or something for the episode. And then they take it away and they act like it's, or to demonetize you. But you try. Because you don't want to do all your time for free. But, you got to, you try. So it is disappointing, and they know it, and they love to do it to you. So anyway, I have to be careful, but the strange things people put in writing, a ghost. You realize you said ghost. A ghost did this. It's like just demonetize it. I can't with this. So and that's the difference between staying yourself and not changing and trying not to conform, just trying to tell as much of the truth as you can within the lines, but you color without the, color outside the lines. But anyhow, so I think it's interesting to look back at sightings. I think they deserve the time. And my God, did you not just in that 10 minutes see more evidence, especially with the Peter James one? She's taking notes. She's writing it down. She's trying to be a historian. She's going to the library. She's looking through, periodicals, whatever, and getting information, talking to townspeople, the elders. And then she's going back and following up, God bless her, with everything that he told her. And you heard Tim White say, hit him. He was hitting him. And that was Peter James. Yet you'd watch that. You'd watch him on other stuff. He was on Unsolved Mysteries, I'm pretty sure. And Kat said, too, that he was on something else. What was it, Kat? I'll have to go back and pull it. Oh, shoot. I know as well as my own, but I'm getting tired, folks, so we're going to get off here. And it irks me because here he is almost a decade on just this show alone. Not to mention everything he did on his own and the countless number of people he helped. He's still getting the slings and arrows. He's still getting the lies slung at him. He's still getting, oh, well, I don't know. He said this. And, it was almost like what she said, and I don't hold her to it because she doesn't realize that this is how they edit it. And this is what they're going to focus, take her out of context or whatever. But she said that he was almost hit it. Well, he said a family died of typhoid or cholera, or he named something else too, but he said it. And they died of typhoid. And it was a family. And I think he was off by a couple of kids or something. And you know what I mean? How precise do you want it? How many times do you want us to hit it at positive? Name people, name people. Well, here in the Sally house, they had it focusing on things like incredible things, like things burning in weird ways, almost like a spontaneous combustion kind of deal. And there's a flower that burns, and the way the petals are burnt, it's almost like you would have to take the petals off the flower, burn them, and then put them back to get that effect. It was, scientists are all looking at it like they can't wrap their minds around it, and Peter James is walking through, and it's almost like they're not even hearing him. They're focused on it, and they're saying it, but they're saying it in a way that it's not an amazing thing. He is throwing out all of this stuff, and he's just hitting it, bam, 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 bam. At the end of it, which was like kind of the crescendo to me, it wasn't the end of the story, but that's all I needed, was he was drawn to a cemetery. And I'll give it to you because there's so much more. We'll do one spoiler and then we'll go. So he takes them. He's walking the town. He wanted to walk through the town and get a feel for things. He's a psychic, So he goes to a cemetery. He's led to a local cemetery, and then he feels like he's getting pulled, and he's getting pulled and pulled, And he's walking around. He gets pulled to this one tombstone, and as Tim White's talking over it, and he says, of course, they got the actual visual, the film of the tombstone. We're looking at it, and it says, time had worn away the letters, and there was no writing on it, and no way to tell. But we go back to the cemetery, and we go over the records of the historians and everything else, and find out that plot was indeed assigned to one Sally, Sally such and such. Sally led him to it. There is a little girl in the Sally house. I can't tell you if that's the only thing in the Sally house. I think all of this focus on the Sally house, and we can go over it with a little bit with Steve tomorrow. I'll see what he wants to do. But I have some more stories, and we'll see where the day takes us. But I think it's important to remember that all that attention, all of those people coming in and out, all of that focus, if this kid, I say kid, 20, 25-year-old young man, and now he's an older man. I mean, gosh, this was 30 years ago. So he was terrified. And that mom should have been terrified for her child. I can't imagine him spending one night in this house. Let that be said. But the constant attention and him getting scratched, and then all of these people focusing on this house had to have the energy of whatever the heck was in there trying to feed off of that. I think it was more than just a little girl. And I think it was handled funky. I don't want to see her responsible because they were trying to be so responsible. But it was just went off a little bit too much. And maybe that was because they were groundbreaking in the whole paranormal investigation and didn't quite know how to handle everything. Somebody didn't come up that was adamant. Even though Peter James was there and he was doing his best, he's not a bombastic kind of, look, girl, I got to go to lunch. We're going to clear this house and let's move. You don't need to stay here. You got to go. And I don't know what you're up to, but you got to go back to whatever dark corner you popped out of, because these people need to raise this child and this guy needs to quit getting scratched. And why somebody didn't just go in there and start handling it like that, I really don't know. But I guess it's good TV and we can still learn from it. So if you guys want to talk about it, and I'll show you those parts with Steve and he can tell his stuff. Where is the Sally house? Honey, I don't even know because I didn't study it to talk about tonight. So I don't have all the facts and I don't want to say wrong. I can say, I don't want to get it wrong, and give you wrong information, but it's very easy to look up. I know that they moved out of the house. I know it was kept up. I know that there's a lot of speculation that the wife kind of pushed at it, kept it going, kept it breathing, and the attention, like I said earlier, that almost that like a Munchausen kind of flavor to it. I don't know. Again, we're on the outside Monday morning quarterbacking too. Who are we? But we got to try to look at these to learn from them. And if I learned anything from that, I think it could have been, I hesitate to find a word. I still can't find a word that describes it. Because again, I don't want to say irresponsible because they were very hard trying to sort it all. But I just think they let it go on too long. And I think that kid went through way too much suffering. And if there was something else in there, a child ghost, what is she in there with? And what's controlling her? What's pretending to be her? If that is indeed the case. There's so much urgent, now I'm hearing that song. Are you? I swear it's starting to play in the back of my head. I love that. When it's a good song. But anyway, urgent emergency. You know what I mean? But I do. I see a lot of urgent things there. And the baby being in the house just absolutely puts me over the edge. But that's that. That's me. I don't know how you feel. You tell me. You've never heard of the case? Well, come in tomorrow. Can you be here tomorrow, Trustee? Because I think at least I'm going to bring that up with Steve, because I have that whole thing here. And it's a wonderful Peter James. He's not featured as much here as because they bring him in kind of late, which is, again, they're feeling their way through. The other case, that one, like I said, too, continues down the line. I'll find it for you. Because that one gets weird, the one with Echo Bodine, and Echo's in a couple other good cases. But I wanted to introduce you to a couple of good, really good mediums that really put forth their best and did a great job, and just time after time after time. And yet you can look back and you can see it go both ways. You pull up a Reddit or a Substack or something else and on that person, and you hear, well, there was this and there was this. The body of work alone. Echo is still very active. We lost Peter James, I think about 10, 15 years ago, somewhere around in there. And it was sad to see him go. But every time I think about him, I smile and I send him happy thoughts and energy and go, man, did you get some more answers, Peter? Because we certainly appreciate all the work you did here. People forget how much these people put into this. I mean, just doing this takes a lot out of me. I don't like, sometimes delving into some of the dark stuff and trying to dig through to see if it's worth going through, because I'm not going to go through it if there's nothing we can gain from it, and I'm not going to drag you through it if there's nothing you can gain from it, or we can gain each other to learn, so we can talk about it. But it's draining, and you're fighting stuff, and you're spiritual warfare. People don't, the dark side doesn't want you to tell people that the light's going to win, and and people that say they know will be very quick to throw something down against. Well, I heard this one time, Sylvia Brown, I heard this one time over here. Look at the body of work. Ask yourself how many people these light workers helped. How many ghosts, how many living, It's just something to consider, because I know you guys go through a lot too, trying to keep the lights on. And, I don't know what happened here in the chat, if Ted got mad or what was going on, but here's the thing. We got to just be chill with each other. We got to forgive each other, because people are all on edge. Light workers are going through a lot. Other people that don't know whether they're a light worker or even thinking about stuff like that, just trying to feed their family and do the things they got to do, are having a hard time getting through their day. So everybody's a little edgy. Some of these subjects and some of the things y'all talk about could be very heavy. And I hate using that word trigger because I think it's overused, but here's the thing. You've got to remember your light worker. And those that are fighting us know where your cracks are. So they're going to push buttons, and they're going to try to take something that's as cool as this chat, and as cool as you are in your own individual ways, and however you go about your day and your life and your journey, you come here to try to get filled. How much do you think the dark side would like to stop that? To distract you from something that you might need to hear that's going to strengthen your belief or your hope or your thought about the other side, and thinking, man, if the other side, then all this isn't for nothing. That's good that I heard about that miracle. That's good that I heard about Peter James calling out all those names. That's incredible. There must be something on the other side. Therefore, there's something larger than I am, and I'm part of that. And I'm a light worker, and I'm going to carry my light through this darkness because this is what I was born to do. How much do you think the dark side would like to stop that? And take something like a text that can be taken so many different ways. There's like a Peel and Keel or whatever their names are. They could be funny. It could be annoying too, but they had a good thing about text and how you can send a text and that person get it wrong and this person get it wrong. It'd be on a totally different wild thing that's not what anybody meant. We've all seen it. It's so easy to do and interject into here. That's why I said, look, if you're a mod, jump in, kind of chill, say, hey guy, we got to keep the lights on here. Don't let the dark side distract you from this. We all love each other. We're all going to say things, but we're not in front of each other, across from a table, having a conversation where we can read emotions and tone of voice and cadence and body language and facial structure and micro expressions. But here's what we do know. We know we're in here every Sunday and Monday. We're in other chats together, wherever they may be. All throughout, I see people popping in here and there. I see people in other chats and other shows that I watch that I'm familiar with. I can feel their energy. And I know what people have told me, my guests that come on here and they tell me, wow, the energy on here is great. But then we have somebody that's gets jumpy or itchy or something like that because they don't agree with what a guest is saying. Right away, everything starts getting yelly and, people can start getting offended. Think about this. Tap the brakes and think. Why doesn't the dark side want you to hear it? Because it's pushing a button and all it needs to do is set off one to ripple. So when stuff like that starts, everybody just say, keep the lights on. Don't let the dark side put your light out. Find a way to say that. And just moderate that and keep that energy going. Block it. And then just get together and think. Block the bad. Block the negative. Block it out. And we all have to understand, too, that we're going to be like, hold on, what did they say? What did you mean by that? It's the easiest thing. How many stories have we seen? People were sitting, a family sitting at home, or I've told family many, many stories about being at the bars and seeing it. And it just goes through. How many people have seen Fallen? Denzel Washington, great movie. Go get it and watch it. I'm telling you, you're going to learn a lot from it because that, based on reality, folks. More than you'd like to know. And you can watch it jump through in the personality change in each person. And it's so easy to do on electronics in a chat like this. So don't let it happen. Keep your lights on. Keep the bacon flowing. Keep the love flowing. And if you have to dip out of the chat because just having a bad minute, you're not feeling it, I said something, whatever. Not your bag of tea, and you feel like you're not at the time you want to hear it right now. I'm not saying everything I'm saying is worth hearing. But it might be something else. It might be something here in the chat. But what we can't do is yell at the guests. If we disagree with the guests, please just say, honey, I'm burning the biscuits. I got to go. There's no need to make them feel uncomfortable because I've had a few people that said, hey, was that person upset? Man, I didn't want to come on your show. It causes me issues. I can't have it because I can't go to invite a guest here and then they go, this is making me, I'm not going to change anything to have somebody come on. I've had people tell me they usually get $150 to the show. I'm like, well, I'm very glad. And I hope you have a wonderful life, and I hope you get that and more. God bless you. But if you want to come on, you want to have a conversation, you want to tell the people that listen, my listeners and myself, the truth from facts, and not you have fairies living in your pillowcase, and you're part dragon. I don't have, there's plenty of shows for that. Look, I'm old. I don't have time. I'm here to leave as much information as I can behind. And if I can go source back to, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years to get it and put it here in the cachet that I'm leaving. This is it. Please go forth and teach other people. But the number one thing we got to learn is we got to be chill to each other. People are going to disagree. If you got to go because you're burning the biscuits or you're uncomfortable, just go. There's no need to make guests or anybody else feel uncomfortable. And then come back. Chill, shake it off, and come back. Because being a light worker is not easy. There's been psychics thrown in jail, wind up in the hospital, mediums, people going in, walking into dark basements, all kinds of situations to help people that are on the very edge of holding on against something that they have no idea how to fight. We know how to fight it. We don't let it in here. This is where people come to chill. Get a little spark, send some love, a little bacon, shoot a little popcorn, drink a cuppa, have a cold beer, whatever you need to do. And that's fine. You can disagree with me. You can disagree with anybody else. You disagree in the chat. We love each other. Wish each other a nice day. And I'll see you tomorrow. Every time. Because I don't want anybody to feel like they're not welcome, because what we got coming, this is what we were here for. This is where the rubber meets the road. You understand? We got to learn how to keep those lights on in the storm, in the winds, and I have no doubt who's going to be left standing. If you need some help, stand up. We're here for that. But don't let them in. Don't let them in. Because they're going to hit. Make no mistake, there will be attacks. There will be. Recognize it when it comes. I see what's happening here. And it's really easy to go, do that 3-minute thing. Breathe in, do that for 3 minutes. Reset your brain. Reset yourself. Take your shoes off. Do you ever notice in a lot of places they walk around barefoot a lot? They're grounded. So many tribes, so many cultures. We've stopped all that. We've been all those things that were natural, whether it's food or how we treat each other, or how we survive, the tribal assistance, everybody getting everybody's back, the trust. They've moved us away from that. Right here is where we get it back. Right here is where we get it back. Even if it's a place where you just take in that energy. Because I can feel it. I don't have to see it. I can actually feel it. And some of the guests that I have on here, they can feel it too. When I go to work, I tell people, you don't understand. If I leave the room or I'm gone today at work and y'all are talking about me, I feel it. I feel it when I walk in the room. I feel it when I'm home. When you get to a certain point, you're going to feel all this stuff and you can see it coming. That's how I know. No matter how much other people tell me that certain things are all one thing, like all aliens or demons, or all this is this, or all this is this. Intuition. Your filters, especially ones that have been exercised for a very long time, something you know. Like you know your child's voice. Like you know how your partner smells. Like you know how your grandmother's apple pie smelled when you walked into the house and you knew she was baking that for Thanksgiving. You know it. They can try to talk you out of it all they want, and they can keep attacking you all they want. You got to know these things because that's your foundation. That's your base. That's based on a true story. That's the real deal. That's the real deal. So you hang in there. You keep standing everybody up. Okay? I mean, like I said, I got a lot of guests coming on that I've got scheduled kind of peppered all through. We got to make sure, especially for mods, if we disagree with the guests, we have to ease people out. Hey, this might not be your cup of tea, please. We love you. Have a good night. Especially if they're mods. That's the number one thing. I don't ask much. But we got to keep it chill, because again, it's not that the show is so important. The moment is important. It's important to me. It's important to other people out there, people that picking it up a month later, whatever. And I'm getting emails and things where they say, man, and then all of a sudden this popped up and I heard this. And they're making it another 5 minutes, another day. Where they got hope, where they got what you already know, and a lot of us take for granted, that there's more to this. They're just starting to discover it. And I thank you for being here and being a part of that, because it's important. I love you all. Okay. Thanks for being here tonight. I'll see you tomorrow night. Let's have a little music on the way out. Why don't y'all take your shoes off? I love this song so much. I've got a lot of them, but I feel like dancing out of here tonight. I love you guys. See you tomorrow. Let there be peace. Let us start with your feet.